Hey guys, MBSC1 again, and a couple days ago I posted a Mega Kangaskhan Reuniclus Cresselia deck list, and it had Ludicolo in it yeah, it just had Ludicolo in it, and I said that you could also do a Cresselia version, so I figured I'd post a list with the Cresselia version. I've been testing with it a lot. I've used it a lot in the past week, past 2 weeks actually, so this is just the list that I actually use when I go to tournaments and stuff. This deck is actually competitive. It's a rogue deck that actually has been performing really well for me, even better than most of my tier 1 decks I use, like Yveltal and stuff like that. So I just figured I would come out with a second list, a sort of better list that can actually be used competitively. So I'll just go right into it. And now I don't need to proxy anymore because I traded for the cards I need for the deck. So we have two Mega Kangaskhan, two regular Kangaskhan. This is all you really need, because the thing is, once you set up a Mega Kangaskhan, you don't need the other Kangaskhan's at all, because this thing pretty much never gets knocked out, and if it does, it's really not worth it to set up another one. So you really just need to have these two in the deck. It's just that I run one more copy of each, just so that if one is prized, you have the other ones. Yeah, and that might seem like only it happens 1 in 10, like it's only a 1 in 10 chance of that happening, but if it does happen, the strategy of the entire deck doesn't work at all, so it's really important that you have the 2-2 line. You could even do 3 Kangaskhan EX and then 2 Mega if you want, just for consistency. I have wanted that a lot, but the thing is, the list is really packed, and I just can't find room for it. But this works well. I find that I get set up with this deck by turn 4 every game. That's the latest it always takes. Very occasionally I get it set up by turn 2, and sometimes I get set up by turn 3. It's more like about 70% of the time you're fully set up by turn 4, though. And that sounds like a long time to wait, but it actually works out not mattering, because after turn 4, if you do set up, you pretty much just don't lose after that. Yeah, you pretty much just don't lose after that. You don't even really need supporters or anything. The thing is, the deck just runs itself after that point. And I'll explain it if you haven't seen the first video. So, then we have Reuniclus. So this is just a move damage to make sure your Mega Kangaskhan never gets knocked out. Oh, sorry, that's... Hold on. I don't think I had this Duosion in the first list. But I found this to be very helpful. I added the Duosion just because I felt like sometimes I didn't have the rare candy when I needed it, but I did have the level ball in my hand. That happens a lot, actually, so I added the Duosion just to make sure that I could get turn 3 Reuniclus every game. And I want to say like 95% of the time I get Reuniclus out by turn 3, and most of the time I get it out turn 2. But you really don't need it until turn 3 anyway. It's not like a Deluge where you're going to take a knockout on the second turn anyway, so it's really fine. And this is a very consistent list, especially with 2 Level Ball and 4 Ultra Ball. You very consistently get Reuniclus out really quickly. And we have... some people told me they thought I should run less, but the reason that I run such a high list of each of the counts is just because they have such low HP. Reuniclus only has 90 and Solosis only has 30, which is the lowest HP you can have. So having a lot of them is really important because they get knocked out early game some of the time. Actually, a lot of the time, but it doesn't matter because after a certain point you just win. So we have 2 Cresselia. This is just a heal damage. So with damage swap, you can move the damage off of Mega Kangaskhan and just move it to Cresselia. And if you have 2 on your bench, they heal together. They heal 20 between turns, and then 20 coming back in each turn. So that's 40 before your opponent can attack again. So if they do less than 40 damage, it really makes it so their attack did nothing to you. And then if they do more than that, you can heal off a lot of the damage anyway and just move it around. And then you also have Max Potion in the deck to heal damage too. I would run Champions Festival. I just don't have room for it. So we have 2 Mewtwo. I did have 1 previously, and the reason I added a second one is because the only loss I had on Sunday when I played, I got second place. The only loss I had was to Plasma Deck, and I needed a Mewtwo the whole game, and when I found out it was prized, it just broke my heart because I could have won the game so many times over if I just had the Mewtwo. And I figured because of that, I could get rid of the Reshiram that I previously had and put in a Mewtwo because I felt like Mewtwo would also help against Freezing Genesect, which is why I had the Reshiram before, because you can damage swap the 70 damage onto the Reshiram and then Outrage for 180 to any grass type because they're weak to fire. But I figured I'd add a second Mewtwo since that deck pretty much the Pokemon take a lot of energy anyway, and I feel like it'll help make it so the Kangaskhan can one-shot if you start out with a Mewtwo and can attack with it. Or even late game, if you have damage on one of their, or if they have a Genesect with too much energy on it, you can load up a Mewtwo and then Lysander up and knock it out. And then we just have one Zekrom and one Virizion. These are both basically techs for the Yveltal matchup. Virizion is just going to stop all of their special conditions, the lasers and the sleep, mostly. Yeah, that's the most prominent special conditions in the format right now. So basically just stops those, and you want 5 grass energy in the deck. So if you can set up a Kangaskhan with a grass energy attached, you're basically immune to those lasers, which are so painful, which basically makes 6 of the cards in Yveltal just dead cards. So that's really cool, adding 1 card in your deck to make it so that 6 of theirs are dead cards. So that's just a nice thing, and 7 if they even run 3 for bank. And then 1 Zekrom, so it's same idea as Reshiram, you just move 70 damage to it, and then you can Outrage for 90, and then times 2 if they're weak to it, and one-shot their Yveltals. This is important because sometimes Yveltal can set up enough energy on a Yveltal so that they can one-shot your Kangaskhan, and so if they do that, you can just come back at them with a Zekrom and Outrage it for knockout, or use a Mewtwo and just attach the Velvet Colorless and X-Ball them for a lot of damage. And it'll be enough because Yveltal just does more damage for each energy attached to it, and they're going to have to load a ton of energy on it. So X-Balling it will be really easy to knock it out. And then after you use Mewtwo, you can go in with a Zekrom because it's a non-EX too, so that's going to help you with the prize trade also. Also, if your opponent uses Suicune or Sigilif, I found that Zekrom's very helpful for knocking out those. Like I said, you just got to move damage to it, and then you can Outrage. And then if they run another Sigilif or Suicune or something, and this gets knocked out, you can always just Super Rod it back in. Same idea with the if you want to just go aggressive against Yveltal, you can use this and Super Rod it back in later. You just got to make sure you have the Super Rod in your deck. That's very important. And then for the energy, we have 5 grass and 4 double colorless. This is obviously just to power up your attackers. We just have grass because none of the Pokemon in this deck require colored energy to attack, and this can take advantage of Virizian's ability so that you can't be affected by special conditions. And that's really it. I did have Blend at one point because I was using different attackers and stuff, but I just found that I really didn't need to use those other attackers, and I just went with a basic grass energy because that's all I really needed. As far as trainers go, we have 1 Megaphone. This is the one spot in this deck that I think could be changed. I tried out Jirachi. The only problem with Jirachi is that you have to put it on your bench to use the effect, and the bench in this deck gets filled really quickly, and there's a lot of Pokemon you just need to have on your bench. So I took Jirachi out for that reason and put the Megaphone back in. This is going to stop G-Booster, which is going to be really important because they can Red Signal up your bench Pokemon and G-Booster them, and all they really have to do is do that 3 times, and then they win. So it's important to have the Megaphone so that you stop them from doing that, because Red Signal is a big pain in the butt for this deck. But you can get around it, and things like Megaphone and Mewtwo and Lysander help against Freezing Genesect a lot. But if you still think it's a bad matchup against Freezing Genesect, you could also take this out for a Reshiram if you want to be doing more damage instead of stopping their G-Booster. I think either way works. The reason I go with Megaphone instead is because I feel like it kind of kills 2 birds with 1 stone because it stops Garbotoxin for a turn, and this deck has a horrible matchup against Yveltal Garbodor or any Garbodor variant if they set up the Garbodor. But it's kind of hard to do for them because you run 3 Lysander and then 2 Mewtwo. So what happens is you can use Lysander to bring up one of their Trubbish when they're setting up and just X-Ball it for knockout really easily. And that's why there's 3 Lysander in the deck. And then the Megaphone will just stop the abilities for a turn too. So yeah, that's why we have the Megaphone. It's more than enough explanation about that card. But like I said, it is a free spot. You can switch that out for something else if you want. A spec of choice is Dowsing Machine. A lot of times I use this as Dowsing Machine for a level ball or a max potion because a lot of times I feel like I need a third level ball or a second max potion. Um, this is just great for recovering resources. It's great because it can be any trainer again, if that makes sense. So instead of having to run a second max potion and a third level ball, I can just run one Dowsing Machine and then get whichever one I want back. Yeah, it's just super powerful in this deck because you have so many one-ofs and just low counts of cards because the list is so packed. So Dowsing Machine I think is a great choice in this deck. I considered Scoop Up Cyclone for a while, but I just think Dowsing Machine's way better. The reason Scoop Up Cyclone isn't bad is because you can move your damage on the field, so you can move all your damage to like a Cresselia and have like 160 on it, and then super scoop up it, and then put it back down, and it would basically work as a max potion. But I thought to myself, well, why one max potion why one scoop up Cyclone when you could just run max potion instead? And then we have one max potion. This seems really low for a deck that can transfer the damage however you want, but in most cases, one is enough. I don't think I've ever actually needed more than one max potion in this deck, just because Cresselia, it heals off so much damage between turns that I find max potion isn't necessary a lot of the time. But it will overflow eventually. Your opponent will do enough damage eventually so that you need to have the max potion, or else you're going to have to knock out one of your own Pokemon. So max potion is great for stopping that. But yeah, Cresselia is going to heal off most of the damage. 40 in between. 40 going into their, or 20 going into their turn and 20 coming back to yours is 40. So that is going to make you heal off damage really quickly. But Max Potion is great for just making that, stopping them from taking knockouts. So just make the deck more tanky, basically. I did have 2. I even tried 3. And 2 is really nice. I really like to have 2, but it's not necessary. And basically the only cards that I have in this deck are necessary cards. I don't have any luxury cards except for the one Megaphone. That could be something else, but it's basically just a tech. But anyway, yeah, you can't really have any just like cards you like in this deck. You have to, it's really packed. Then we have one Super Rod. This is for recovering Solosis, Mewtwo, Zekrom, and Virizion. Those are basically the main reasons for that card. Solosis gets knocked out really easily, so it's important to be able to Super Rod those back early game if you need to. Also, if you have to discard a Reuniclus or something like that early game, then it's important to put them back with a Super Rod. Even bringing back Cresselia if your opponent Lysander catches it up or red signals it or something like that. Bringing it back, it's nice for bringing that back. But yeah, it's got a lot of purposes. And plus you only run 5 Grass Energy, so sometimes you want to bring it back with Super Rod. That doesn't happen a ton of the time, but sometimes it does because you need to power up Mewtwo or something. But really, once you get those 3 energy on the Kangaskhan, the only real reason why you would need energy is to attach to Mewtwo or Zekrom so that you can use X-Ball or Outrage. So if you're not going against Yveltal or Rizine Genesect, really you just need the 2 energy, the double colorless and the 1 grass. But we still have the 9 energy just for consistency, and that's why there's such a low count. 9 is pretty low, but that's all you really need, especially with the Super Rod. Then we have 2 Floatstone. This is just for retreating. You don't really need Switch because you have Rizine to shut off special conditions. Sorry. And then, yeah. So Floatstone is just better because you can use it as many times as you want, and Switch is just a one-time use thing. So I find that I usually start with something that I don't want to start with. So I put a Floatstone on that and then just use that to absorb damage for the first 1 to 3 turns, usually swapping the damage around so that it doesn't get knocked out with Reuniclus. And then when I'm ready to, I just retreat with whatever active has the Floatstone on it to my Mega Kangaskhan and then start using Wham Bam Punch every turn for the rest of the game. This is also great for attaching to Mega Kangaskhan if halfway through the game you realize you need to use that Mewtwo and you have a Lysander in your hand, then you can either just have it on the Kangaskhan because you'd attached it there earlier turn, or you can attach it from your hand this turn and then retreat and use Mewtwo or Zekrom to take that knockout that you need. And then as far as the ball count, we have 1 heavy ball. This is just for searching Mega Kangaskhan or regular Kangaskhan. I found this card to be very helpful. It's awesome, and I noticed that I Skyla for heavy ball. I don't know, kind of a lot of the time. It doesn't happen a ton of the time, but it's nice not having to discard anything to get a Kangaskhan. So I found that necessary to get my Mega Kangaskhan out by turn 4 every game. We have two level ball. This is just searching for any of the Pokemon in the Reuniclus line, because Reuniclus does have 90 HP, so any of those Pokemon in that line can be searched for with it, and that's really nice. Very helpful. This card does turn a lot of the, I mean, basically all the cards in this deck turn into dead cards once you're set up. But the thing is, once you're set up, you don't, I mean, you might as well just have Execute as the rest of the cards in your deck because you don't need anything anymore. The only thing that's really important is sometimes a Lysander and sometimes a Max Potion. Um, and that's about it. So it doesn't really matter if you have dead cards later, as long as you have a lot of cards to make it so that you set up quickly in the beginning. So that's why you have the 2 level ball. And that's why there's 7 balls in this deck, is because that makes it so you consistently set up quickly. And I know turn 4 doesn't sound quickly, but trust me, that's about as quick as you need it to be, usually. Sometimes you need to be a little quicker, but anyway. And then we have 4 Ultra Ball just for searching out any Pokemon in the deck. This just makes it super consistent, and that's how it has to be if you want to do well with this deck. And then the last of the items are just 4 rare candy. This is just for evolving Solosis to Reuniclus quickly. Yeah, and we just have 4 copies to make it consistent. And then as for the draw support cards in the stadiums and the other supporters, we have 2 Tropical Beach as our stadium. You can run 3 if you like. It's just the list is really packed. Like I said, you can take out a Megaphone for something, maybe a 3rd Tropical Beach if you like. But this is all I could really fit. This is all I really have on me at the moment, actually, too. But, you know. And then as far as supporters go... Oh, yeah, and like I said before, you can run Champions Festival in this deck, too. You could even take out the Max Potion for it if you want to run Champions Festival, because it's just a way to heal more damage. And after a while, it'll probably heal more damage than Max Potion will. Because if you just have Champions Festival out for 3 turns, then it's already healed more damage than if you had Max Potioned a Cresselia with 160 damage on it. Because Champions Festival will heal 180. So yeah, Champions Festival is really nice. I just don't have any on the moment, and it's not super important to get for this deck because other cards are almost as good anyway. And then we have 4 Juniper. This is just to make you draw a lot of cards really quickly. You might think it might not be a good idea because you have the stage 2 Pokemon. I know some Blastoise lists only run 3. I know some Emboar lists don't run any Juniper, actually. I saw this guy make top 8 with no Juniper, which is pretty interesting. But anyway, yeah, Juniper is just, you know, make you draw a lot of cards. I find that it's not really a problem discarding state or a lot of your Pokemon because a lot of them you just don't need after the beginning. So as long as you can set up your Reuniclus and your Mega Kangaskhan quickly, you just don't need a lot of those Pokemon anyway, so it's no big deal. Plus you have balls to search out any Pokemon if you have a thin line anyway. So 4N, just standard in every deck. This is also great for like pretty much the whole game. This card doesn't really ever have a bad use in this deck. I think it's probably the best supporter by far in this deck, actually. So the thing is, it's good in the beginning because you're drawing 6 cards, which is obviously very powerful, and then Hand Disruption to, you know, make it so your opponent has to shuffle their hand into the deck, which is obviously very good because this card's been popular for a very long time. And then it's also very good because, like I said, after you're set up, you don't really need to draw anything. So if you're low on prizes, you can just continue to end your opponent down to low cards, and you're ending yourself down to low cards too, but it doesn't matter because you don't need anything. So the N is very good in this deck for that reason. It's almost just like a free red card late games too. So yeah, N's very good. We have 2 Skyla. You'd probably expect more for a deck that runs Tropical Beach and Rare Candy and a lot of balls. But unlike Blastoise and Emboar, which I kind of compare this to a lot because those are the other decks that once you set up, they pretty much win. Or, well, that's not entirely true, but it's the same sort of concept. But instead of running 4 Skyla, I only go with the 2 because we don't have things like Superior Energy Retrieval, so I don't need to get those every turn to win. I also have 7 balls instead of like 4 or 5, which is most of those decks run. So a lot of the time I can just get the Pokemon out without using Skyla. A lot of the time I just have Rare Candy and then a ball or the Pokemon. So I don't really need a high Skyla count. Plus it's not a very useful card a lot of the time. I feel like I just want to draw cards more than I want to Skyla for 1 card, especially when I'm setting up in the beginning. Later game it is good because you can Skyla for your 1 Max Potion or your 1 Super Rod. Which is basically what I find I use Skyla for the most. Occasionally I'll Skyla for a Tropical Beach. Doesn't happen very often though. I usually just draw into it. And yeah, so that's why I have Skyla. And then we have 1 Colress. This is a lot less than I had in the Ludicolo list. I think I had 2 or even 3 in the Ludicolo list. But the thing is, this is more packed for space because this is, the good list. And the one chorus is just to draw a lot of cards mid to late game. Mostly mid game, because late game, like I said, you want to use those ends to put your opponent down to a low number of cards in their hand. But yeah, Chorus is just great for drawing a lot of cards. I only have the 1 copy though because it's not very good early game. You want to get Juniper and N a lot early game, so just have the 1 copy of Chorus. And you'll notice that is not very many draw supporters. That's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 draw supporters. So if you're a competitive player, you'll know that is not very much, and you usually want to have like 13 or 14. But the reason I only have 11 is because I have 2 Tropical Beach, which in my head adds up to 13 draw support cards, so I'm okay with that. And then on top of that, we also have Kangaskhan EX has the attack triple draw, which just lets you draw 3 cards. And because of that, you don't need supporters as often. Or I mean, you can buy yourself out of supporter drains fairly easily with those 2 cards, Kangaskhan and Tropical Beach. And then also I just find that the deck doesn't need a ton of stuff to get itself going. Like I feel like I draw into most of the cards I need anyway, like without supporters. Just obviously because of Tropical Beach and stuff. And then the other reason why there's a low draw support count is because late game they're just useless. They're just cards you don't need anymore because you don't really need to draw anything anymore. And instead, late game, you want to be using these guys. So 3 Lysander, I think this is awesome. I love how this card is basically just a catcher in this deck because you don't need to use the supporter, so you can just use this as your supporter, and it works fine. Especially, I mean, basically after turn 4, Lysander is the best supporter in the deck. That's the way I look at it. That or N. Because you're going to do 100, maybe 130, maybe 160, and very occasionally 190 with Kangaskhan. But for every time that you don't one-shot an EX, your opponent's probably going to retreat it and bring up something else. And so after your opponent has done that so many times, they probably have 2 or 3 Pokemon on their bench that are in one-shot range if you can Lysander them up. So after that happens, you can just bring them up and finish the game out. This is also great for Lysandering up, like I said, the Trubbishes, so you can X-Ball it with Mewtwo quickly. And then also if they have a Yveltal on your bench and you have a what's it called? Zekrom. You can Lysander up their Yveltal and then one-shot it with your Zekrom. So yeah, I think 3 Lysander is necessary in this deck. I could run Megaphone, more Megaphone, so that I have a better Garbodor matchup, but I think Lysander is actually better than Megaphone now, just because it's a permanent solution to Garbodor. Well, not permanent, but it solves the Garbodor problem for more than 1 turn, because it's a lot easier for your opponent to just attach another tool than it is for them to set up another Garbodor. So I think Lysander is better for that reason. So yeah, that's the whole deck. Like I said, I've tested with this deck a lot. I've tested with it extensively in a short time period. I'm on summer break now, so I have plenty of time to just test with this deck all the time. And so I can assure you this is actually a very good list. I know it sounds ridiculous that the rogue deck can actually do well, but I've had a lot of success with it recently in the past 2 weeks. So yeah, you should try it out for yourself. It's not really an archetype yet. I don't know if it will be ever. People might just not ever learn about it, but who knows? Maybe it's good. So you guys should probably try it out for yourself if you like it. So thanks for watching the video. I know this is a super long video. It's only almost 25 minutes. So like if you like the video, comment if you want to tell me something, maybe talk about the list or something like that, and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching.